Most L&D teams are drowning in content. More e-learning, more PDFs, more platforms, more noise. But more isn't the answer. It's the problem. In this episode, Tom McDowall joins the conversation to cut through the chaos and answer the question, what actually makes a good learning experience? You know, the kind we all dream of. Real, frictionless, user-led journeys that actually drive performance, not just completions. Because the future of L&D isn't content, it's context. And that starts with really good experience design. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. Today is a super special episode because I'm joined by none other than Tom McDowall. Tom, hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, for anyone in the UK, I feel like they should know you. Not anyone in the UK, anyone in the UK in L&D. Bit vast to say you're like a huge celebrity across the board.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but you know.
You wasn't going to deny it.
Yeah.
But for anybody that hasn't heard of you, Tom, who are you? What do you do? Tell the audience a little bit.
Oh, well, I'm kind of exactly what you'd look for someone to look like who says, I spend a lot of time on the internet, I have a podcast, I have a YouTube channel, and I talk about a niche subject. So, of course, the glasses and the beard just come with those things.
Of course.
All my background is kind of, I always say, I got into sort of L&D out of frustration as a people manager with the quality of what my people weren't really getting. Thinking, well, how hard can it be to train people? Turns out actually not as easy as arrogant younger me thought. But then I spent a lot of time working sort of internally with corporate L&D teams, then worked on vendor side, worked in EdTech, went freelance, went back to working in EdTech, and now I run a company called Evolve L&D where we help L&D teams, we say move from L&D to R&D, but it's ultimately about becoming a more agile business unit that is seen as valuable as opposed to a cost centre.
I love that, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. On the past few episodes of this series, we've really spoken about getting to know your audience and the business and aligning to that properly before we do anything else in L&D, before we even think about opening an authoring tool or even opening a flip chart to do a classroom session. We need to really understand who the audience is and understand what the business wants from us. But now we've got to this part in the people impact loop of employee experience design. And for people listening to the Marketing for Learning podcast, obviously that is going to be all about learning experience design. Now, I've been around for over a decade now, which has flown by. And I've got, some things that I think about learning experience design, but I'm no means an expert. I've never done it, apart from our masterclass. But other than that, I'm just a bystander in this industry. So I thought, who better to invite onto this podcast than you, Tom, to actually talk about what makes good learning? What stops us with putting out this boring content that L&D just seem in a perpetual loop of doing? So maybe let's start on the biggest challenge L&D are currently having when it comes to learning experience design, what you think that is and what impact that's having on our industry.
I would have to say scale. We are building far too much and therefore we are stuck. We have too much to build, so we build quickly, so we build crap. That's okay. Consistently, because I have never once walked into an L&D department and found people that don't care or that want to produce ineffective experiences or are lazy. Never. Yeah. And I've walked into a lot of L&D teams at this point. They are filled with passionate, intelligent, engaged people that want to have a positive impact. But every single one of them, there's lots of different problems going on, but the one consistent thing is I have got 60 jobs and 60 minutes. I can't do things quickly and well. You get one or the other sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. And so I think a big part of the issue is that we are still trying to build training for everything we're trying to solve. Which is why I kind of talk a lot about like training as the last resort. Training is, the negatives are time consuming and expensive and difficult to get right and has to land with every individual, which is challenging. You know, as you always said, sort of getting to know people, understanding the business, this all takes time. So if we're trying to solve every problem that comes to us in this solution, we are doomed to failure, is my view. We've got to be more selective about what actually gets designed, and what do we say, hey, we can totally fix that problem by changing that process. Who owns the process? Yeah. Who can change it? Let's hand over. Let's collaborate. Let's work cross-functionally. We've got to get some of that work off our plate so we can actually focus on creating genuinely impactful experience where they matter. Like the best example I ever saw of this was we were working with a team, and I said, so what are you working on? Went through this big list of things, and one of the things on the list was a course about how to use the new recycling bins in the office. It's like, I'm sorry, you mean like an email? No. A big old e-learning. 15 to 20 minutes of it. It's like,
how?
It's a bin. Like, I struggled to find the right wording for this. I mean, it's like, do you only employ idiots? Is that your concern? Do you think that people cannot use bins? Like, if someone
that is crazy.
Yeah, this is it. But it's because of that assumption of, well, something's changed, so we'll need to build a course. And if that's what you do, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're doomed, is my view.
Yeah. I actually had a conversation about this just yesterday. And somebody challenged me, because I was saying very similar to what you're saying, Tom, is not everything needs training. Mm-hmm. And they said, but we are the L&D team. People expect us to do training. How do you handle that pushback? So I put that question to you, Tom. How would you handle that pushback when people go, but you're an L&D person, go do training?
Well, I think we've made this rod for our own back. People think that's what we do because that's what we've done. So we can't complain too much about this problem. We built it, so we have to fix it. The pushback really is quite simple, is that we've got to stop talking about learning. We've got to stop making that our persona. We are not the workplace education department, because that's what courses do. They educate people. What we need to be and how we need to communicate is performance. So I make a very big deal of it. I never want to see an L&D team go out to the business and talk about knowledge transfer or engagement metrics or any of this stuff, because that's not the language we should be using when we talk about ourselves. We should be talking about, here's what the business is trying to achieve, and here is how we have contributed to that. The engagement stuff, the learning stuff, the knowledge transfer is all hugely important to us. Mm-hmm. We need to know it. We need to be excited about it. We need to be passionate about it. But we don't need to make that our external persona.
Absolutely.
We basically need to rebrand ourselves as that learning stuff is part of what we do. What we really do is performance. And until we do that, we will always have that pushback. But in the meantime, when we do get that pushback, it's got to be a conversation of, well, look, I could build you a course. It won't work. Nothing will change. We'll waste everyone's time. Or I could fix the problem for you. Now, I strongly suggest you soften that language to the context of the conversation you're having.
Do you soften that language, Tom? Because I can't imagine you doing that.
No, but there's this weird thing that we've all experienced. When you are an external consultant, you get to walk in and do things that would get anyone else fired.
Absolutely. And so it's part of the fun, right?
It is. It's also part of, if you have an external consultant that you can get to go and do this for you, that's sometimes the benefit. Not because you can't do it, but because they will make your life easier. Let them take the flak, because they aren't going to care beyond the current sort of job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important what you're saying there, that not everything is a training problem. And I think that, like you said, it's a rod for our own back that we've made. But that being said, training is part of the overall employee experience. And that's what we're 100%. Talking about here. When we're talking about performance change, it is employee experience. If people are unhappy at work, they're not going to be performing so well. And granted, we have a limited capability as L&D professionals in how we influence that. But when it does come to designing experiences that, actually work, how do you go about that?
So the initial question we ask ourselves is, what's the smallest thing I could do to help this person, to help the role, usually, or the persona?
Yeah.
So the standard approach of kind of like, well, what do they need to do, and what's everything they might need to know to do that, and then how do I get them to practice it, inevitably builds a very school-like course. because we think about knowledge, and then we think about skill, and then we think about choice. That's not really how the workplace works, though. You have to do all at once. So we say, so what's the smallest touch point we can have? Is it, give this a read, it'll come up, you'll need to do it, that's all you need. Or is it a demo? Is it a short video? The smallest possible touch is always the first question we ask. And then we very quickly try and get to the point where we come up with some kind of prototype. And this is not, you'll notice, the kind of, it is and it isn't Addy all at once. It's different language, and because we tend to use language better aligned to a product design process. So we tend to think of everything we do as an internal product, or feature of a product, depending on the scale. Do that. Very quick prototype. The prototype will not be built in a rise or a storyline or whatever. Some prototypes are drawn on a piece of paper and so if you were given that, how would you interact? What button would you click? Watching the confusion on someone's face, what do you mean button? It's a bit of paper. Like, okay, imagine that square there labelled button is a button. How would you interact with this? And you very quickly realise you do not understand your people as well as you think you understand them once you put a prototype like that in front of them. But it costs me a bit of paper and the use of a pen and maybe an hour of some time and some thinking. But then I know, okay, don't do that. That didn't work. If I'm thinking, I might go down the line of, a quick video or something, well, scripting the video is the easy thing to do, right? And if the video is going to work, the script will work. So give people the script that's taken a little bit of writing, let them read it, get their feedback, rapidly iterate is always what we work on in terms of creating really effective content. If you're creating something that cannot be rapidly iterated on, I would suggest you shouldn't be building it in a modern L&D team. Because it means you have no plan to update this content, and that's
absolutely
scary.
That's really scary.
It's and I get that often the argument is, how often does this stuff really change? Everything is changing quicker and quicker, and I get that in the past, if you created your GDPR training, it was going to be solidly viable for probably a few years with minor little tweaks.
Using GDPR as a great example. That came out in 2018. I was still an in-house marketer. I've still got my scars from going through that process. By 2020, the whole world had changed.
Yep.
Everything had changed. So everything needed to change. So that in itself, 2 years shelf life. Before you have to at least review it to check that it's right for the world we're living in today.
Yeah.
When you're rapid prototyping, and you say you go out and ask people, who are these people you're going to?
Users, always users and their supervisors. We caught some flack a while ago when I publicly said I care very little for what the SMEs think of the content, but it's because it's not for them. Like, I care very much about their technical input at the start of the process, but I could not care less about whether or not they think a video would be better, or an e-learning, or a workshop, or what colour blue we should use, because they aren't going through the experience. The end users are, and the supervisors are often involved in some capacity, well, always involved in some capacity in terms of ongoing coaching and support, but usually involved in the actual experience as well. So it is always going to them. Always. Generally speaking, if we can't get to them, we're very nervous about making any kind of content contribution because we have no way of validating it in a meaningful way beyond our own opinions, and usually SMEs and senior leaders, which again are just not valuable viewpoints, I would argue.
No. And it's a real danger, isn't it, building based on people's biases and assumptions, because what I enjoy as a learning experience, I know my husband, for example, would absolutely hate. He absolutely hates anything he has to read. You give me a book, oh, I'm so happy. PDF, I'll sit and read it. Like, that's me. I enjoy that. We're all different. If I was designing a program, you do instinctively just think of your own biases, and that's why we can't do that. We can't build in isolation anymore. We can't do any of our work in isolation. We have to be talking to the end users, to what I like to call our consumers. As soon as you start thinking about them as a consumer, they are consuming our learning.
Yeah.
Then we've got
100%.
to treat them differently, haven't we?
Definitely. And part of that as well is offering variety. Like, we are so far beyond the point where there should be a learning intervention when required. There should be a selection of tools that allow people to learn what we need them to learn. There's this concept of learning clusters. It's been around for probably 6-7 years at this point. Hasn't really caught on. And at first it was, what do you mean I've got to create 3 or 4 versions of something? That's wasteful, it's time consuming, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Technology caught up, and all of a sudden creating 3 or 4 versions of something is so phenomenally easy. It really scares me how often it's still, no, this is the solution. And it will work for you because we have decided, as the L&D experts we are, that you will learn in this fashion and in the way that we have prescribed. It's all sounding very Victorian.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Exactly.
And that's really worrying. It's like Victorian with Uber PowerPoint. That's all we've kind of got to, which is upsetting. But yeah, so offering a PDF, but also saying, oh, by the way, there is an option to just click there and it just reads it out to you as an audio. That's so easy to do now. Why would you not offer it? If Substack can do it for a blog post, or tens of thousands of blog posts, I'm sure we can manage it for our procedural guide or whatever.
Exactly. And how much do you think that one solution approach ties in with the fact that we're still thinking content first, and then coupling that with the fact that it's an ongoing conversation, it's an ongoing rant, that learning styles don't exist? So if learning styles don't exist, why do we need to have so many different types of content? I'm going to caveat it before you respond. I don't believe that. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I was going to say, where's the leave button on this call? That's terrible stuff. No. As much as, like, it's very easy once what I would say is come to the light side, it's very easy to go, like, how can people think like this? But there is logic in that. And that I do get, funnily enough, I had the same conversation with my wife, because we both work in L&D, so dinner's very fun here. But she's doing stuff with schools at the minute, and obviously teachers are still predominantly taught at degree level. Learning styles, they're important, you have to adapt to them, blah, blah, blah. But if we just say, okay, so the point of learning styles, as people tend to, is that I've got to provide stuff that's visual, I've got to provide audio options, and I've got to provide hands-on options. And I can see the logic and going, that is good learning design. It absolutely is, but not for those reasons. It's good learning design because of context. The context in which people are operating is different from person to person. We also need to consider the accessibility side of things. For instance, if I'm a visual learner and I go blind due to an accident, what, am I now just not capable of learning?
No, of course you're not.
It's kind of the simplest way, I think, of getting through that part of that argument. Because otherwise, there's lots of data, there's lots of research, blah, 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 but no normal person is going to ever win that debate by going, here's a research paper, read it and learn. Doesn't work. No. Probably because they're not visual learners. No. But so instead what we do is we talk about dual coding. We talk about we talk a lot about the brain. We talk about the cognitive sciences and how actually difference and change and having to adapt to different modalities is good for the brain. Feeding in the same information with multiple formats allows us to build a greater kind of context window, effectively. Well, that's not really a proper brain term, for the information that we're storing. It creates a more diverse schema of what we understand something to be. The easiest version, I still love this example created by John, is the idea of everyone's mental image of a bike. You say a bike, and we all go, okay, I know what a bike looks like. And then we go, okay, a mountain bike and a road bike and a motorbike, and we're all going, oh yeah, because we have a diverse schema. If you've only ever seen a mountain bike, everything else is going to look like some weird version of a mountain bike that your brain tries to adapt to these different contexts.
I love that. Yeah, I'm literally sat here thinking what a motorbike would look like if I'd never seen a motorbike, and it doesn't look like a motorbike. You've blown my mind.
but we need those different kinds of input, the same information from different formats in different contexts to expand those schemas. And once you put it into those terms, one, it makes the conversation nicer because we're not having the you're wrong and learning styles are bad and therefore you're bad. Bad information's everywhere. I'm sure in 20 years' time, someone will look at something that I've said and go, God, this guy's an idiot. He didn't know this or that or that. Yeah. And comparatively speaking, I will be. And that's fine. I would be worried if in 20 years' time we did not have a substantially better understanding of this stuff. But yeah, so I think that the whole argument really is that we know that multiple, dual coding is the simplest version of this, although we can go for far more than two, of course. coding this information using lots of different sources, lots of different modalities, lots of different information styles will help us build stronger memories, but more important than the memory, strengthen our ability to retrieve that in context. It's no good, for instance, knowing everything there is to know about AI, but not being able to bring it to use in the workplace, you know?
Yeah,
and we see that a lot in kind of people who are book smart, let's say, but have never done the job. There is huge value in book smarts, but there's also huge value in being able to utilize that in a space.
Absolutely.
And, that's really important for us.
And that's a big part of marketing, with having that social proof. If somebody said to me, like, hey, Han, tell me about a campaign that you've run that's really worked for an organisation, I could reel off stats, I could tell you stories, I could tell you the impact that marketing has in businesses. Having that applied context is the difference, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
With this multiple modalities, how do we not go too far? I've worked with clients a lot in the past year or so. They've got this post-COVID hangover of buying lots of content and shoving it in a platform. And you search, let's say, something obvious like leadership training in their platform, and you've got 70 responses. Some are e-learning courses, some are videos, some are articles, some are PDFs. And there's loads of modalities there, but there's just so much content that as a marketer, I'm sitting there empathising with the end user going, they're going to be overwhelmed. They're going to click that little X button and not come back to your learning platform. So how do you handle that as a learning designer?
So everyone will have a different stance on this, but I advocate for getting as much of our stuff off these platforms as possible. The vast majority of it doesn't need to be there. I don't need to track how many people have read this PDF. That tells me nothing useful. All it does is make it difficult for them to get to the PDF. That's the sole thing that happens when we put it on an LMS. And I've worked with LMS providers, and they are filled with good people, but the vast majority of them are awful. From an objective user experience perspective, they're just bad. Because we don't spend enough time in them. Because we're not there all the time, no one complains enough to really move things forwards. So put the stuff where it's actually useful. Figure out where your knowledge base should live. We've got this real problem, I think, of we used to have knowledge management and L&D, and the platforms were separate for very good reasons. One, L&D are terrible knowledge managers. We should be going to knowledge management for that input, not trying to do it ourselves. And LMSs are a bad place to store really long, complex documents. They're not designed for it. Their search functions in them are terrible compared to knowledge management platforms. But we do it because we want to own another thing. We've got a bit of an obsession with ownership in L&D. We've got to hold on to learning. Learning's our thing. No one else is in charge of learning. It's just us. We have a knowledge platform. But even then, if we can get as close to the user as possible, and I mean putting it in the actual work environment. And sometimes this means physical, though I'm always hesitant to create print materials these days. Things change too quickly. There's risk attached. But why can't we, for instance, if someone's using, I don't know, an SAP platform, we can totally embed help materials in the platform where they're actually useful. Because the only time I need the process flow for this is when I'm doing it. So why would it not be in the software? That just makes sense. I think
there's platforms out there that can do that as well, isn't there? Like there's platforms that if you really cannot work out how to embed it into your software, there are platforms that you can purchase that do that act like Mr. Clippy did in the 90s, teaching us all how to use Word.
This is it. And even it strikes me that we're not doing this, and yet I think right now it is the most exciting thing happening in the edtech space, is this promise of hyper-personalised assistants for everyone in your business that actually know their stuff, that can genuinely answer questions, like Clippy, but what was always promised.
Yeah.
You know? I still kind of want the funny little animated character. But I want him to add, I don't want you're trying to write a letter. I want I can see you're trying to create an API to link this and this. Would you like some help? God, yes, I really would. Thank you ever so much. That is so close to being a reality, but we are resisting it rather than embracing it by our obsession of, well, it's got to live on the LMS, otherwise we won't be able to track how many people opened it. Oh, well, if we didn't have that information, the world would end, obviously.
Again, it's a real big thing that L&D can learn from marketing. We're sitting here talking about learning experience design, employee experience design, but marketing are doing it day in, day out. Imagine if marketers never used a social media channel and was like, no, I must put everything on my website because that is where they are going to find it. No, they're not. People don't just happen upon your LMS, but they do use the platforms, like you just said. If it's an SAP platform that they're using to do their job, they are there. They are using it. Maybe even if it's not something as overt as that, maybe they're trying to do something and they search your company's intranet. Most organisations I've worked with, your learning platform is not speaking to that. That is not surfacing learning content for you. You're forgotten about again. And I have a lot of clients say to me, oh, I just want people to treat us like Google. Google built a reputation. People know to go to Google. They are one of the very few companies in the world that are like them. We can't be a Google. We have to think more like consumer marketers. Get in front of the people that you are trying to reach, that you are trying to help. Get to them. Then you can actually help them. And it goes back to what you were saying about performance. That's all we should care about.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of this that is... I'm always trying to reflect these days on like what's easy to say versus how difficult it is to do. And we're in a weird space where it used to be that a lack of technology or technical ability genuinely stopped us doing stuff. We are now in a space where there is no technical excuse for not doing this stuff. But strangely, we have created a culture and kind of in-business sort of societal situation where it's entirely acceptable for us to be ineffective in this way. That our content doesn't really have to deliver anything because no one's expecting it to. We don't have to prototype because, well, we never have before. We can put everything on the LMS because everyone just goes, oh yeah, the LMS sucks and I'm going to have to go there, and if I don't go there, someone will send me a snotty email telling me I haven't logged into the LMS and I've got to go and do it. Will they give me a link? No, that would be useful. They'll just tell me to log into the LMS because you can't link to the LMS because the link always breaks and so on and so forth. It's a really strange place that we have built for ourselves, but that is kind of the good news, that we built this for ourselves and therefore we can change it. It just takes some really brave moves. Thinking about the marketing stuff as well, like email.
Yeah.
Like email is such a woefully underused modality for getting things in front of people,
and
assuming they work in an environment that it's used.
Dull as hell.
Yes.
It's saying, hey, like you just said, go log into the LMS, or there's a new course for you. And no, that's not what we're saying when we're saying utilise email. I actually think there's a big piece about content marketing here. For example, I'm writing a new ebook. In that ebook planning process and writing process, I'm thinking, I will take this paragraph and I will make that a LinkedIn post. Not, oh, you've got to download it to see what I'm saying here. I'm going to give away that content to make people more intrigued to then come to me. That's what we need to be doing with our learning, giving away some of it. Just saying, hey, look, have you thought about this? If they don't come to you, cool, no matter what. Like, you've helped them in some way. You've helped improve their performance, if that's enough for them. But you're kind of drip feeding them this stuff that's making them go, I want to get involved. I want to do this. I want to go and learn more. Who can honestly say that they've worked in an organisation where people are knocking on the door screaming for learning? It doesn't happen because we are not approaching it in the right way.
Yeah, and it's strange because we do outside of the workplaces. Like, I use myself as an example, but like I've got a Substack. I write 5 Substack articles a week. And when I started that, no, we haven't read them. They have the feel of someone who writes 5 Substack articles a week. That's
fair.
which is kind of the point. They're not supposed to be fully polished, but either way, each one takes like 5 to 10 minutes to read. Now, when I started, I thought there's no way, I'm writing this for my own benefit. It'll get me to think more, blah, blah, blah. It'd be good for me. Will anyone read it? No. 5 articles, but it's far too much. We never get a day where an article gets less than 300 reads on Substack. Now, that's not a big Substack by any means, but for something that publishes 5 times a week, that's 300 average people a day spending the time to read something. If I told you in a business that was happening, You'd go, oh no one reads anything that comes to them in their email. It's like, well, we do outside of work, so why is there maybe just what you're sending them is crap. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're starting it with, hello, learner, as if somehow that's who they are as a person.
That is my biggest bugbear, and I will refrain from ranting about it, but the word learner should be set on fire and thrown in a dumpster. It is nobody other than us L&Ders, identify as learners. It is just... No, if anyone is listening to this podcast and knows that they've sent a hello learner email, never do it again. I'm not even going to be polite about it. Don't do it.
There's no good case.
We have the fallback on email platforms. You have first name fields, but then you have a fallback. I say friendo. Like, hey friendo. It's still better than learner. Like, there are many options. I'd actually be less offended just by hi than you calling somebody a learner.
Well, you don't write to prospects and go, hello, future income. That's not how you talk to other human beings.
No.
It's... And in terms of mindset as well, I think it helps us to not think about people as learners, because that's not what they're there to do. To be brutally honest, we should be thinking about employees. Because their job, I promise you, has nothing to do with learning. Nothing. It's, I'm a contact center agent. I'm a this, I'm a that. I'm a shelf stacker. I'm a manager. No one is going to say learner. If you go to your L&D department, no one there is going to say learner either.
No.
And that should tell us how far
I actually know one person that does describe themselves as a lifelong learner. We both know this person. I know she's behind on the podcast. I wonder if she'll listen to this. But it is Paula Hughes.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
She often says, I'm a lifelong learner, but she's got, I don't know how many university qualifications behind her now.
Yeah, in fairness,
she's
learned about some cool stuff as well.
Yeah,
okay. I could give that.
There's always one anomaly.
Yes, indeed. This is it.
Absolutely what you're saying about nobody identifies as it. Nobody identifies as a learner. I think the word learner also is very loaded, that they're going to learn, that they want to learn, that their purpose is to learn, and it's not. But thinking about that email piece again, and it ties in with content on your learning platform, actually any kind of content, even if it's a face-to-face program you're inviting people to, stop leading with the topic. That's boring. Lead with what they're going to get from it. Even if it's, there was actually a good chat on LinkedIn recently about search features in learning platforms. People aren't searching for leadership training. They're searching for, I don't know, my employee got something wrong. How do I have the conversation? Someone's handed their notice in. What do I do? There's a grievance in my team. How do I handle it? Even grievance actually is quite an L&D word. I don't know if people would say that. We need to be reflecting what our people say. So there's this thing in marketing called voice of customer. And we need to be doing that in our copy, in our subject lines, in our learning platforms. Whatever we're doing, we need to be thinking about our audience and how are they going to receive it. The end outcome, for example, is there's a better leader in the company. That's the performance change. But that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for that, please help me right now because I'm stuck. And we need to be mimicking that within our work as well.
But I think a lot of our hesitance to do that comes from a desire to look clever. I've got to be really honest about this. It's the same reason that I love language, and I have to work really hard to make sure I don't go out of my way to use complex language for no good reason. Because I just enjoy using words, and I like figuring out how I can word things that sound great and have flow and blah blah blah. But I almost want people to go through a learning experience, get to the end and go, oh, is that it? That felt really sort of simple and a bit too I feel like I've taken stuff, but is there not? Should I not be here for longer, or should it not be more complicated than this? It's like, no, I wanna put areas of complication where they make an impact and make everything else as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And at the minute, it's like we're making everything else really challenging. So then any challenge we put in the learning experience just takes us over the edge. It's too much. Whether it's an email, a text message, a WhatsApp, whatever, those are effective because they're simple. They allow you to focus all the cognitive energy from around learning on the actual stuff that matters, not the getting to the content, finding the right question, whatever it might be. And I think once we get out of that platform space, it's much easier to be grippy with the language that we use. It's easier to speak the way people speak to each other, like other human beings. Who knew, right?
I know.
But
your learners aren't robots.
Yes, this is it. It's and so one element, and I still struggle with this element. I think there's got to be something psychological to it, but beyond me, is that we ourselves are in this position. Like, we all have to go through some form of development, whether it's, usually created by someone else in the L&D space who knows a bit more than we do or whatever. We experience this ourselves, complain about how bad it all is, and then inflict it on others more. This is terrible, so I shall do more of it. And eventually it will just magically become better. It doesn't make sense. There's something in that, but I don't quite know what it is, but it is infuriating.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to that time issue again, doesn't it? And also a confidence issue. I think a lot of our boring, bad content problem does come back to, does the L&D professional have the confidence to say, no, I don't think we should be doing that? When the CEO comes to you and says, hey, I've just heard of this new e-learning library and we're going to buy it and put it into our LMS. I've already signed on the dotted line. Does the L&D'er have the confidence to go, no, that's not going to help our people?
Yeah, and I think there's the oh, well, you would say that argument here, and there's the reality, right? So, again, I found that I have to have my own company because the answer is, yeah, I'll say that. But the reality is that in a lot of businesses, saying that is it's not a good career move, shall we say. And that's really horrible and corporate, and I don't like the fact that that's the case. I think it's fundamentally wrong, but it is the lived reality of, I think, the vast majority of organisations. However, I do think we can be smarter about the fact that we can coach our senior leaders so that that situation doesn't come up. We can, from day one, we need to be in there trying to make sure that we're going to align to you, but we want you to have not an understanding of knowledge transfer and all this rubbish going on in the background of our heads, but just on our philosophy of learning.
Yeah.
So I talk about this a lot with the teams that we work with. It's like, do you have a published internal philosophy of how L&D works in your business? So, no, why would we have that? So that people understand what you're doing and why. Like, you can't complain that the IT department has bought you this terrible platform for learning when they have no idea what you're trying to do. And if you've never succinctly said, here is how we operate, this is what we would like from everyone else in the business, you don't get to complain, you don't get to be upset. You've fundamentally fallen down. I guarantee you, if you go to the internal brand and marketing team, they will be able to tell you the visual guidelines for the business. They will have a tone of voice guideline. They will have adaptations of that for the web and print and internal and external use. No letter will go out to a customer with a letterhead all wonky or whatever. It will be brand standard. We have to operate like that if we want other people to take us seriously. And as long as we're just like, we just figure it out as we go along, well, why would anyone else treat us anything other than that then?
Yeah. And I think using the comparison between marketing again, you saying that has made me realise I've never worked in a marketing team or with a marketing team where the team didn't know the objectives and the route of travel and why we were doing things. Even going back to when I was in my undergrad placement, so I was literally the dog's body of the team, doing all the bits that people didn't want to do, stuff in tote bags for exhibitions, all that kind of stuff. I knew what the objective of that team was for that financial year. There was never any doubt amongst anyone in the team of what that goal was. Comparing that to LN Connect last year, I was on one of the panels. You obviously organised that event, great event. I asked the room, there must have been around 30-ish, 40 maybe people in the room, and I said, who knows your L&D strategy? I saw a few hands go up awkwardly, like, yeah, kind of know what's going on. Then I said, who knows the business strategy? Who knows where the business is going and wants to be? 2 people put their hands up.
Oof.
That's not good enough. I don't know why we're so comfortable in not knowing this, because no matter how junior you are, like I said, I was the absolute dog's body of that team in my undergrad placement, but the things I was doing, as tedious and boring as they were a small cog in that big wheel of helping the business get to its goals. I had to know where it was going. So no matter whether you're the most junior person in the team, no matter whether you're a head of L&D and you've got a archaic CEO barking orders at you, you have to still know what we're doing here. We're not creating learning for fun. I know we're all geeks, but I'm not sure anyone wants to sit and play old storyline for banter. Like, although I actually did do that in COVID, but that's a story for another day.
They were strange times. People started making bread, despite the fact the shops had no stock problems. I still can't fathom that.
No, that is strange. And I did also just make catchphrase in storyline. It wasn't learning.
There we go. This is everyone's favourite thing to do in our orphan talks. It probably tells us a lot. No one wants to create learning experiences in them. We do want to recreate video games. It's quite noticeable.
Says a lot.
But yeah, and I mean, the on the positive side of all of that is that the strategy thing is not a difficult thing to fix. I think we hear strategy and everyone goes, "Oh, that's above me. That's beyond my mind." It's like, no, I guarantee you, your company strategy will be published. Mm-hmm. Your business wants everyone to know about it. They want the customers to know about it. They want the stakeholders to know about it. They want employees to know about it. So just read it. That's all you got to do.
And if you're in a small business, if you're in a business that's small enough not to publish it, then your CEO isn't that far away from you, or people on the C-suite. Ask the question. It's not.
I promise you, they want to share it. Like, it's not a secret. You know, unsurprisingly, it's not something that's just in their minds. And then, heck, if you've got to shame your manager into defining an L&D strategy, do it. Because if they're not doing it, they are failing. They're failing you, and they're failing the business. And if you're the leader and you've not done it, sorry, you're failing. You need to like pull your breeches up and do your job.
It's really scary how many L&D teams don't have a strategy, right?
This is it. But again, I think it's because we have built strategy up. And I'm gonna point the pointy finger of blame here at the fact that the first time you start talking about strategy in, for instance, CIPD training in L&D is level 7. Only a tiny minority of people are going to pay the obscene amount of money it takes to do that level of training. We should be talking about strategy from day one in L&D. The business strategy, your units, maybe not how to write a strategy from scratch, but it should be a constant drumbeat.
It has to be.
It drives me nuts that it's just seen as this, leadership, whatever leadership looks like in your business, deals with strategy, it's not my problem. It's like, no, strategy is everyone's problem and everyone's North Star. If you don't understand and have an awareness of a strategy, how can you do anything? Like, we're Evolve's a small business, but you can bet your ass we've got a social media strategy. We have got a web strategy. We've got a content strategy. We've got a customer acquisition strategy. Because how can you operate a business function without it? It makes no sense.
And in small cases, I'm sure, you might tell me I'm wrong here, Tom, do you have that all in 15-page documents?
No, some of it's still on Post-it notes.
But it exists. Ash and I have this conversation so often. Like, we are a team of 2. Our strategy is often us having a rambling 3-hour conversation and going, yeah, that's it. We know what we're doing and we're so united in it. We have that conversation probably once a year. It's our strategy. It doesn't need to be documented. You should just be able to talk to it. As soon as you've got more than 2 employees, document it.
Yes.
In any which way you want to do it, it needs to be documented, because then that's the avoidance of doubt, isn't it? Of this is what we're aiming towards. But an L&D team operating without a strategy blows my mind. And the example I give through our masterclass is you can almost think of your strategy as your sat-nav when you're on a journey.
Yeah.
If I was going from where I am in Hertfordshire up to Middlesbrough to see Ash, I could walk it. Actually, I probably couldn't after doing the marathon the other week. I'm never walking again. But I could walk it. It would take me about 4 weeks, but it's feasible. I could drive. I could get the train. I could probably get buses the whole way. There's loads of different things that I could do. Your strategy's telling you the best way to do it. So that's what we need to be aiming for with an L&D strategy. Yeah, we could buy loads of content. We could get a new platform. But actually, this is our North Star. This is where we want to be. And this is the best way for us to get there. So that's what we're going to focus on for the next 12 months, 18 months, whatever. It feels to me, and I've been into a lot of L&D teams, we're often just rambling, aren't we? We're often just on this content churn of creating, like you said at the top of the podcast, we'll create content, finish that, chuck it on the LMS, create another bit, chuck it on the LMS, and we're never stopping with this obsession with creating content rather than actually thinking about the overall experience.
Yeah, and this is it. But once we've reduced the scale, that'll be a little bit easier. Once we get closer to the user, it'll be a little bit easier. All these things are incremental. Like, none of them solve the problem. And equally, I think we're getting to quite an exciting point with some technology where we can generate ideas very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone's played with like lovable.dev yet, but it's my newest toy. It's fantastic. But you basically, you plain text prompts, does all the LLM, blah, 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 but it designs you a full-on interface. Like what it looks like based on it. So you can feed it like drawings of, I think, in blocks like this and buttons like that and blah, blah, blah. You can feed it your text and blah, blah, and very quickly prototype an experience in like 10, 15 minutes. You can play around with it for free as well, which is one of my favourite things.
Love that.
In 10 minutes now, I can go from, maybe we could approach it with a multi-scrolling cards thing on a phone. Maybe that's the answer. Okay, I've got one. Does this fix the problem? Yes or no?
Yeah.
But we don't think like that. We think that we have to obsess over the detail, obsess over the development, take a million years to do everything to the point where it's not needed anymore. And I think that's where a lot of that issue lies. I don't think it lies in the hearts and minds, as it were, of L&D professionals. No. I think it's the workflow that's really getting in the way of great content right now. The tech's there, the desire is there. We've just got to get the scale and the pacing right. I think it could all be wrong. That's the other side of this, right? I think we're often far too certain in some of this stuff in our space. Yeah, that's very true as well. I'm reasonably confident, and where we fix these things in organisations, we've seen a massive improvement, but context is king, right? There will be some people there going, I barely make any content and it's still rubbish. At that point, it's time to arrow in and think, do I have the skills for creating good content? Because we can't all have that, right? We only get it by learning it, and if you haven't gone through that process, you won't have it. Which sounds obvious, but sometimes just fades into the background when you're snowed under.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you said again at the start. I've got to echo it back. It's not an L&D professional's fault. I've never met somebody that wants to create a bad experience. Nobody sits there and goes, how can I bore these people to death?
Yeah.
That's not where we're coming at this from. We know people want to deliver the best experiences, and like you said, some of that process and some of the systems and some of the this is how we've always done it gets in the way. And almost for really effective, really good employee experience design and learning experience design, we need to have some gumption and try to batter some of that down, even if you said like in incremental gains, in small little steps, trying something different, saying, hey, look, this worked better, trying a bit more. And that's also how you win over the stakeholders as well, with evidence. So
100%.
So I've got one question for you now, Tom.
Let's go for it.
We're living in a dream world. There are no barriers. There are no nothing. You've got into an organisation. What is a good employee experience to you? What defines, that works?
For me, the best description I can give you is it's frictionless at every touch point. As the person going through the experience, I should be unaware of the mechanics of what is going on. I should be growing, developing, finding things out, discovering things, doing my job for the vast majority of the time, not feeling like I'm being pulled to different places. When someone tells me, you've completed your onboarding experience, I should not be able to look back and go, that bit, and that bit are what they're talking about. I should be like, okay, I've been here 6 weeks. What do you mean? Which bit of this was that? And which bit of this was work? And which bit of this was the HRE bit? It should all just come together very naturally. The minute someone has to step in to pull the lever, as it were. I always imagine the pull the lever crunk moment out of The Emperor's New Groove, which is kind of very, very L&D-ish, quite frankly.
Incredibly, I love it.
But the moment you have that, yes, but whenever you have that, or you have the you'll need access to the LMS. That wasn't part of your onboarding request to IT because L&D own the LMS, so they have to manually set you up as a user. Then they'll email you something and it won't work, and then you'll have to go and speak to Phil over there. Phil was who I used to work with, who managed the LMS stuff. So yeah, it was how he managed it, I don't know. But the minute that stuff creeps in, the quality of your content ceases to matter, because the friction of getting to it has destroyed its value for the user. But then the same becomes true in the learning experiences, whether it's a podcast, a video, an e-learning, a PDF, whatever. Frictionless. Where does it live? It lives as close to the use case as possible. How is it designed? It's designed to minimize the effort required to navigate and use it, so that all the effort can be put into doing. So yeah, just low friction the whole way through. It's got to be the top priority.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people overlook when Ash and I often say you can't outmarket a bad learning experience. We're not just talking about the content. We're talking about that entire process. If someone's fed up of searching, or fed up of having to log into different platforms, or just trying to actually get to the learning, you've lost them. If they are in a learning experience and it's crap and it's boring and it's given them nothing, you've lost them, and it's going to be much harder to get them back. No amount of marketing is going to solve those problems. And that's coming from me, who genuinely believes in marketing for learning. It's not going to solve all your problems. You have to get the experience right before thinking about marketing, because you can have Coca-Cola's budget. If the experience is rubbish, they're not going to come back time and time again, are they? You wouldn't buy something from, a clothes manufacturer, get it delivered and it's got holes in it, but then they send you another great email, so you're like, I'll try again. No, you've lost the trust. And so much of what we're doing in L&D is about trust, and we need to make sure that every single bit, and I'm with you there, in a dream world, frictionless. I've just completed a discovery program with a client, and I think that is exactly what their audience are looking for. Frictionless. I think it's going to be my word of this podcast, I think, because I think that sums up exactly what good employee experience design really is.
I think so.
So if somebody's listening to this and saying, okay, we spoke about the dream world, you spoke about the things that perhaps are holding us back, what do I do now? What's the one thing you would say somebody listening to this should go away and do to improve their employee experience design?
Oh, this is so...
I like the big questions.
Yeah, these are... It's difficult because I spend so much time preaching context and nuance, so the idea of picking one thing is very difficult.
Okay.
Engage in experimentation.
Okay.
Because no matter what your problem is, and no matter what stage you are at, conducting experiments will help you. Whether it's discovery experiments where you're like, I have no idea which way is up, you're in discovery world. Or if you think you've got an idea but you're not sure, you're in validation experiment world, sorry. Experimentation will help you at every stage of the process. And it's something that anyone can implement. It doesn't require lab coats or grand methodology statements or anything like that. It requires giving something a go, seeing if it works as quickly and as cheaply as possible, and then changing based on the results. I think it's something we could all do a lot more of.
And I'm just going to add to your point, something you said earlier. When you're experimenting, test with actual users.
Oh, yes.
Don't test with your L&D team. Don't test with your senior leaders or your SMEs. Test with people that are going to be using it. Again, going back to my undergrad placement, I witnessed the UX team there doing exactly that. It was so much fun to watch, but so funny, because I used to work for 123 Reg. That's who my undergrad placement was. So domains and web hosting and all stuff like that. And you're asking fairly techie people, how would you buy a .co.uk domain on this website? They couldn't work it out because the UX was crap. You need to be asking the people that are actually there and using your learning, and get that group of employees in your organisation. Again, don't just get your star learners, the people that love learning. Get some naysayers. Get some people that complain or grumbly, or people that have never engaged with you before. Get them to test it for you, because that's when you're going to be getting the full picture of what's really going to work.
Definitely. They're far more interesting, to be honest.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's something a bit boring about, I love learning. Tell me the juicy goss.
Those people want to work for the training team at some point in the future. I promise you, they will apply for the job when it opens on the team. They probably wanted your job, and they're slightly unhappy that you're in it, and they think they should be. We've all been there on our teams, and they're great people, but they're not actually helpful in testing, I find, personally.
No, absolutely. And of course you need to make sure it's a diverse group, but those star learners normally skew our data a little bit, especially as we've spoken about in previous podcasts, that audience insights piece. They're giving you a very niche view because they love learning. It's the ones that say, no, I never log in because I can't work it out. They're the ones you want to hear from.
The 99.9% of people in your business, usually. That's
exactly.
Who are like, I don't care, please go away, I'm busy.
My clients hate it when I tell them, like, oh, can we get some people together? And they're like, yeah, we can do it in 2 weeks' time. And I actually say, if you can do it in 2 weeks' time, they're not the people I want to talk to. Because you need to persuade the people I want to talk to that they need to talk to me. And they don't care about learning, so that's a challenge in and of itself. So
this is it. It goes back to that people have got a job to do. And often we're getting in the way, and the more aware of that we are, the better we will design. Because if we design with the context of, we are a pain in the arse for these people, how can we minimise that effect? Rather than assuming that everyone's like, oh, goody, the LMS. How exciting.
Has anyone ever said that?
Usually only if they're trying to sell an LMS. It's been my experience.
Yeah. Okay, fair.
They love their platforms. They're intuitive, they're engaging, they're all very exciting.
And they're so unlike all of the others, and then they look exactly the same.
I couldn't possibly comment. Having worked with a few of them, they're all beautiful snowflakes in their own way, and they're entirely individual and not just the same thing repackaged with a different logo at the top.
And having not worked with an LMS for over 6 years, they're all the same. So, Tom, I've absolutely loved this conversation, and I know that we could talk forever, just like we do whenever we bump into each other at events. How can people find you and follow you if this is their first time meeting you on today's podcast?
Well, I'm very difficult to find. LinkedIn is always the easiest way. Just search Tom McDowall or Evolve L&D, I'll come up. You can also search for Instructional Design Tips, which is the YouTube, Substack, TikTok now I think we have as well. You can tell I'm not fully okay with TikTok by that response. I think we have a TikTok account. But yeah, any of those search terms will pop up.
And I absolutely love your YouTube as well. I've told you that a few times. I've listened to episodes. It's nice for me to see that instructional designer lens on the industry as well, where I'm so embedded in marketing. So thank you for that as well, Tom. So thanks for being here today. Hopefully we'll have you back soon. And I'll see everybody else on the next podcast.